Cricket et al. It's a website, it's a podcast.
Pete, it's a way of life. It's Gideon Haig over here.
Peter Lawler over here.
And welcome to Cricket et al., your independent cricket podcast. I'm in the Cogatorian. Pete's in his guest house in Grenada, having travelled from Barbados. Tell us, Pete, is it beautiful one day, perfect the next in Grenada?
I'm almost hesitant to tell you how bloody nice it is here. I feel like I have landed in paradise. I've been kissed on the dick again, Gideon. This place, yeah, I wasn't quite, I hate to say this, wasn't quite into Barbados. Barbados had a bit of a Bali feel to it for me. Yep. Might have been that I was staying in a hotel, and all those sorts of things. But it was just, there was constant noise in Barbados. You could not escape noise. Even the bloody kites sound like, single cylinder motorcycles, as I wrote one of those pieces. And on the last night, one of those kites was flying about 200 meters from my room and just sort of buzzing all night. I landed here. I've landed in this. It's a bay called Morne Rouge, although I call it Morne Rouge Bay, named after the Red Morkel.
How did you get there for a start? I'm quite interested in how people fly from place to place.
Yeah, even that was pleasant. I face every airport with dread. You lose a little bit of your soul every time you go to an airport, I think.
So there's no British West Indian Airlines anymore, is there? I was looking that up before. BWIA used to be the Caribbean carrier, defunct in 2006. BWA used to be. They used to say the abbreviation stood for Best Women in the Air. Their hostesses were notoriously comely, and Richie Benaud's great mate Robert Gray married one, I think. But go on, how did you get there? I need to know this. I need to tell my daughter, the great airline fanatic in our family.
Well, it actually reminds me that I took lots of photographs of the plane and of the airport and from the plane. In fact, I published one from the plane. It's a prop jet. I don't know what sort of plane it was, but it had propellers. I had a window seat. The airport at Barbados, I was about to say, is beautiful. Open air airport. You just rock up. You give them your, like, especially in India and Pakistan these days, you actually have to stand outside in the 50-degree heat and have a printed ticket and all that palaver. And Sydney airport's like, I don't know, it must be like cattle feel like when they're going to die, when you're in those queues and people are poking and prodding you and you're getting bits pulled off you. It's joking, friendly, go this way, go that way. The guy in customs was having a great time making fun of us. Ran into the Blom brothers again. I think there's 17 of those Blom brothers around. They are everywhere in the world. Got on this lovely plane, flew for about 35 minutes, dropped down onto this island is so picturesque, volcanic island. The flora and the fauna are so different to Barbados. I'm down in this bay. The bay is about the size of Coogee, surrounded by hills. The trees spill down onto the beach. This morning, somebody else was swimming when I went down for a swim, and I was most offended. I actually said to him, mate, this is my bay. This is my island. That's how serene it is. He turned out to be a Cuban from Miami who was here doing business and was flying back later today. I wished him luck, and the look in his eyes, he said, yeah, I'm very, very nervous about going back there. This is a great island.
The population of Grenada is only, you could fit it into the MCG. It's 114,000 people.
Correct. Yes, as Daniel Cherney pointed out, there's been more people at certain AFL grand finals than there are in this whole country. They're very laid back people. They're very friendly people. They're very nice people. This morning, I was making, because it's a long walk out of this bay over a very steep hill in heat. To get to I catch the local buses, which are fun. The mini buses, they're just hilarious. Some guy stopped in a plumbing van. Now, normally, you think, God, I'm in trouble here. He said, his apprentice said, where are you going? He said, I'll give you a lift to the bus stop, which is still another mile away. Yeah. So I jumped in the back of his van, a guy called Donald, and I forget his apprentice's name. And then we're chatting to Donald, and he said, where are you going? I said, cricket ground. He went, I'm supposed to go there at some stage. He made a call, and he said, listen, if you don't mind, I'll go and drop the apprentice off, and we're going to drive around Grenada, and I'll drop you at the ground.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So me and Donald had this great ride around. He showed me his hometown and the hills and the best cafes. It's impossibly hilly. It's like the streets of San Francisco, and the buses wind through there. It's very colourful. It's very hot. It's an intriguing place. I wish you were here. We'd have so much fun together here. Walking back from the ground this afternoon, I thought I'll stop. There was a guy. He's got these oxygen cylinders that he's cut in half, and he's cooking jerk chicken on charcoal under a tent. A big man of African descent. And I'd spoken to him the day before when I walked by, and I walked by again, and I said, I think I'm going to have to try that jerk chicken today. And he said, yeah. And he gave it to me, and you're supposed to wander off and eat it. I said, I've got nowhere to go. So he made me a little spot under his tent, just sitting there. And then I was eating the jerk chicken, which was fantastic. I did ask for a fork. Apparently you meant to eat it with your fingers. Well, I'm not up for that. Look, he was gone. And I went, what's going on here? And then there's these customers coming wanting jerk chicken. So I ended up running the jerk chicken shop for the next 25 minutes, thinking, where the hell is this bloke and why is he? And all the locals are looking at this white boy who's running the shop. I made 4 sales, I will tell you. I'm pretty good at selling jerk chicken.
You could easily end up in one of Sam Constas's Instagram videos, Pete.
Robert Danger McCarthy then reappeared. That's his name. He said, I just popped home and pointed to a house up the hill to get some more supplies. I said, you could have told me. He was very happy, so he bought me a beer. Turns out he's an MMA fighter from Jamaica.
Oh, so this is how he gets the middle name Danger.
Correct. I looked him up. It's legit. Okay. Good fella. Anyway, yeah, there you go. It's a pretty entertaining place, I got to say. Yeah. I'm having fun. This is that Caribbean experience that you dream of.
Yeah. So why is there a test match in St George's?
Oh, is there a test match on too, is there?
Apparently, yes. But yeah, you could easily lose focus on that. But why has it come to Grenada? Why are they having test matches there? It's the smallest of the Windward Islands. It's not, the Windward Islands is the least successful domestic side in the West Indies. I was looking it up this morning. So what have they done to deserve this test match?
Well, originally, of course, this is the old, I think it was called the Queen's Oval back in the day. They've been playing cricket here since the late 1800s. Yep. It fell into disrepair and wasn't used all that much. I mean, they didn't have their first test until 2002, I think, and they've only had 5 tests. Yeah. But for the World Cup, the good old Chinese came over here and built them a Smicko new stadium, which is now called the National Stadium. It's a lovely stadium. It seats 20,000. That, of course, fell into disrepair again when there's no more money to keep it up. And in fact, they don't play a lot of cricket here, Gideon. They haven't played a first-class match here, I think, for 2 years. Wow. But the local government decided that it was going to put its shoulders to the wheel. It invested a lot of money in getting the stadium back up to scratch. They've given it a lick of paint. It looks a treat.
Have they replaced the statue of Chairman Mao?
No, it's still out the back on faded signage that it was built by the Chinese, and the Chinese flag is still flying outside the stadium. The lick of paint, there's only a couple of cricket grounds on the island, so they've had to get the rollers from the cricket ground, from the other cricket grounds to help prepare for this match. They're really invested in it. Cricket West Indies are really invested in it too. How they're going to get 20,000? They're not going to get 20,000 people here. If you think it's 120,000, not even 115,000 people in the whole country. And remember that it's an archipelago. It's not just one island. This is the main island. There's 2 other islands nearby. Yep. But they do like cricket, and they have made a great effort to get the locals up and about for it. Donald, the plumber, tells me we love cricket. I said, people aren't going to get there, are they? He said, no, we love cricket here, man. I think he was there for the Australia West Indies game one dayer. Was it 2007?
2008, yeah.
8, was it? Yeah, close, but no cigar. So they're pretty keen on their cricket here. We'll see if they do show up. There's not as many Australians here as there were for Barbados, but there'll be more than there will be for Jamaica, because Jamaica doesn't really rate among people. We'll see how it goes. I'm hoping people show up. There's a bit of, it kind of feels special to be here. It feels like, I want this to work. I actually want to start to lobby that maybe the World Test Championship be held here in Australia, play more Test matches here, because any bloody excuse to come to Grenada. I've already rung Sue and said we're moving. We're going to move. You know how we were going to buy the Perseverance Hotel and turn it into cricket? No, we're going to go offshore. We'll get the tax breaks. Right. And we'll run our operation from over here, Gideon. I know you're not exactly a beach guy, but there's a nice banana lounge under a tree where you could just read books all the time.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Where does the Exford Hotel fit into these plans, Pete? Is that still in our future? The Exie. All right.
Yeah.
Bit of interest around this Test match. Let's talk some cricket, Pete. Has Australia named its side? It has actually named its side. We're not just assuming that that's the configuration they'll arrive at.
No. The traditional question and answer was asked at the start of the press conference today, and Pat confirmed that Steve Smith will play, as we expected. Josh Inglis has missed out. There's some interest in that. I watched Smith have a bat today, and I saw it was just against throwdowns, and he got one right on the toe of the bat, and the hand came off the handle straight away. So there's still pain there, no doubt about that. He's ginger in the catching. I watched him at training yesterday. Cummins says, look, he'll probably go to slips for the spinner, Nathan Lyon. And that's a good thing because, he's taken some brilliant catches off Nathan Lyon over the years. He will not be there for the quicks. Probably put him, mid on, that sort of area. He said he might try. He'd try to hide him down at fine leg, but he'd be creeping into the circle all the time because he doesn't like to be left out of the game for very long. So Cummins is back. The West Indies aren't really sure of their side. They're thinking maybe to load up with Anderson Phillip and get rid of Jamal Warricane, which interests me because the track is quite dry already a few days out, and looks like if the sun keeps up and the match goes a few days, like more than 3, you'd expect maybe spin would come into play. Although, as we saw in Barbados, what actually happened was, I was talking to Josh Hazelwood about this yesterday. I said, that just looked delightful, that pitch on the last day for you. And he said, yeah. He said there was a crack. He said crack on a perfect length for Paddy and I. He said Starkey couldn't get it, so I had to bowl for the other end. And he said, you hit that crack and you're away. He said it just opened up on that third day and made the West Indies' life miserable. I mean, no one knows how this wicket will play because they just hardly ever played any cricket here. But it looks like it will crack up. I mean, I don't know how any wicket can't crack because it's extremely hot during the day and they don't put a lot of water into those pitches.
You can't imagine that it's going to last much longer than 3 days, can you? And they do have Roston Chase to bowl spin, so they wouldn't be losing out much in terms of bowling strength.
No, they're 2 really good bowling attacks.
Yeah.
But I think Australia has the quality in the batting attack, with a few notable exceptions. All eyes are going to be on Sam Constas this Test match, and to a lesser degree, Cameron Green at number 3. But we'll see how they go.
Well, the two are kind of linked, aren't they? The two are kind of linked in the sense that, Constas potentially makes life a lot more difficult for Green. You don't want to be coming in at one for spit all the time when you're opening batter. So if one comes off, maybe that enhances the opportunity for the other. But look, we've probably said as much as we need to say about Constas and Green. That's an ongoing
I reckon,
factor.
But if you are a number 3, you should have the skills to be able to handle that because that's
sure. Not all the time,
often, isn't it?
Not all the bloody time. Yeah.
The West Indian opener is an interesting story today, Craig Braithwaite, because he's about, I think, 100th Test, isn't he?
100th Test
now, and I think he's
the lowest average of any batter with 100 Tests.
Do tell 32.83, I think.
32.83,
yeah. But not that aside, I mean, he's just the 10th West Indian player play 100 Tests, and he's the first.
That's a bit of a comment, isn't it, on the strength of West Indian Test cricket over the last 10 years that he's got to 100 Test match. His last Test 100 was in February 23. Since then, he's averaged less than 20. He's made double figures twice in his last 10 first-class innings. I mean, I wish him well, but my word, he's probably the ugliest Test batter of his generation too. The fact that he's turned up is a bit of a giveaway about where Caribbean cricket's at.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because Roston Chase, who I find is quite an intriguing man. I like Roston Chase. He's a tall, gentle, bookish captain, quietly spoken, intelligent. He started playing with Craig when he was 11. Right, and so he talked about him today and said, he said he was just a slogger in his early days. Yeah. And he did not have, he said he didn't have any shots on the offside. He said not one single shot could he play through the offside, but he could pull balls from a 6-stump line and hoik them down leg. Both their fathers were fanatical cricket fans and attended every game. And I don't know about his father, Brathwaite's father, but he used to hammer into his son that he had to improve his technique and he had to become a better player. And he worked on it and worked on it and worked on it. And it's interesting. I think there's a fantastic sort of Q&A that Nasser has done, Andrew Glasson, there. Yep. And Roston Chase mentioned this as well. When he was young, like he was 14, he said, my desire is to play 100 tests for my country. So, he had this ambition and he stuck to it. You might say that he's lucky to get there, and that he is, and probably reflects the state of West Indian cricket in many ways. But he knuckled down, and he did have some very good years, Gideon.
He did have some
years where,
he was very good 100 in Perth. Really good 100 in Perth.
Yeah. He was, and look, he captained West Indies in about 38 tests, which is a lot of tests for a West Indian captain. Yep. And in fact, he was in charge when they had the famous win in Australia. So interesting career, and he stuck at it, and he has never played
a professional T20. Yes,
and he
a killer stat.
And he's only played 10 ODIs. So that's the kind of cricketer I can get behind in a way.
Totally.
Yeah,
yep.
I don't mind a guy who's hanging in there with a 32 average, you know. In fact, I thought he's right up your alley, frankly.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I'm leaning against my own partiality there. Bit of news, Pete. Now you are the. I'm surprised this has slipped past you, but as you're the Pat Cummins cap correspondent, but apparently it's gone missing. What's going on?
Killing me, mate. I'm slipping. I noticed out on field in that Test match. I think, but hang on, he's got the bloody old cap on.
He's got the old cap. Yeah,
there he is. He's carrying on about his his
new Albion cap.
The last one in existence, and I sort of made a mental note, but of course, like all my mental notes, they sort of disappear. And then so Dan Cherney he's scooped me on this. He's written me up. The fucking cap's gone missing. It's gone missing between the bloody shoot with the trophy when he talked about it and the bloody toss.
Yeah. Yep.
How do you lose a cap? I mean, unless you're David Warner. I don't know. I thought Pat Cummins is a little bit more careful on that. You can only assume that it's been stolen. I don't know. He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's going to misplace a cap.
No.
That's hard. I mean, while it has no history to it, it was the last one in existence.
It's interesting that
allegedly.
It's interesting that he's travelling with the old cap as well. And I would have thought if you're rummaging through Pat Cummins' bag and you're looking for something to steal of his, wouldn't you take the old cap, not the new cap? The one that he's never worn? I tell you what, I'll be very suspicious if it turns up at auction.
Well, I guess if it wasn't a cricket fan who stole it, they go, oh, there's the shiny new. Yeah, some people do like new. Not everyone likes a T-shirt with a hole in it, Gideon.
That's true. I've actually got it. This is an old Albion baggy green here, which I have.
How did you get that?
Australian made. Oh,
look at you.
It's actually quite a good story. Back in about 1990, I think, I was a bit interested in the Australian cap back then, and I wanted to know who made it, and I heard that it was Albion. So I went to the factory there and I interviewed this lovely man called Tony Henson, who was really interesting guy, instrumental actually in the development, the early developments of the cricket helmet. And I interviewed him at length about the provenance of the cap, and I said, "Oh, don't suppose I could have one?" And he said, "Oh no, we're very we're very picky about how it's distributed." Later in the interview, I got him talking about the Greg Chappell sun hat, which Albion also made.
Yeah,
and
great hat.
great hat. And I commented that Greg Chappell had made some remarks about it in Jack Egan's book Extra Cover, which I was actually carrying with me. And he said, "Oh, I've never seen that before." I said, "Oh, look, here you go. You can have my copy." And we got on really well. At the end of the interview, he said, "Look, don't tell anyone I did this, but I can tell this means a lot to you." He just pulled one off the wall and gave it to me. So that's how I've ended up with an Australian cap. And I bet periodically I've lent it out, but otherwise it just sits in my drawer upstairs. But it's a very, very handsome item, and it doesn't suit me at all. So I was never destined to play.
Put it on and let me be the judge of that, and our YouTube watchers. If you're listening on on Spotify, go to YouTube.
What do you think?
Oh, that's pretty good. You actually look like something out of a very early cricket team. Yeah, that's good. No, it does suit you.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. But please don't wear it around.
I won't wear it. I mean, I don't think you really should. I remember Ian McLaughlin telling me that he had a cap. You remember Ian McLaughlin, the Conservative politician? He was also a very good cricketer. He was 12th man for Australia in a Test match, and as a result, he had a cap, but he had never worn it because he'd never ended up making his Test debut. He was quite picky about that, which I thought was spoke well of him.
Yeah, when I first joined the Australian, I wrote this stupid story about bloody David Boone's drinking record for the Weekend magazine.
Yes.
And to do the photo shoot, the magazine, I think I'm right about this. We needed a baggy green cap or something. So somebody contacted a player who'll remain nameless, who doesn't really respect the cap that much, and sent it in for the photo shoot. I think they just wanted to shoot the cap. And I don't know, in a moment of madness, I put it on, and there's a Polaroid of me wearing it. But, I feel ashamed that I did.
Yeah, right.
I feel like I did the wrong thing. I know that the player wouldn't mind at all. But to me, it's almost like walking into the dressing room or something like that. It's something you don't do. Yeah. Forgive me, Father, for I've sinned.
Speaking of Booney and great traditions, I'm sure you would have seen that story about Nathan Lyon handing on the responsibility of Australian songmaster to Alex Carey, which he's held since January 2013. I think he'd be the first player to hand it on without retiring. What did you make of that?
So Huss handed it to him on retirement.
2013. Yep.
I did listen to. I wasn't at the press conference that he did, but I did listen to the audio of it. He's very earnest and respectful of the tradition, almost humorless about the traditions of Australian cricket. Nathan, aren't they? It's like high church to him. He was adamant that this did not signal any intention to retire, and he still has that bucket list of winning in Ashes and winning in India. I found that a bit hard to believe, but I didn't mind it. I thought it was at least an acknowledgement of a train rushing fast at him down the tunnel, and that maybe. I don't know. I'm reading a fair bit into it, actually.
Right.
He went up to Carey's room, and he'd written him a letter about it. It's a big deal with these guys, and he spoke to him about it. I love the gesture. I love the generosity of the gesture. I love how Nathan takes it that seriously. I think it's fantastic that Alex has got the job.
Yes.
I've fallen big time for Alex.
You have
Carey,
man love
in recent times.
Too.
He's such a great cricketer and a great guy. And I'll talk to him a bit more about it. But you, of course, I always thought that the song originated. Well, the first person to do it was Rod Marsh, but it's not quite right, is it?
Well, no, I mean, he's the first. I think he's the first person to do it in the Australian dressing room. Greg Chappell tells that story, doesn't he, of Marsh leaping up on the dressing room table at the end of the Oval Test match in 1972, and with this rendition. Apparently, he'd got it from Ian Chappell, and Ian Chappell had got it from Ray Hogan, and Ray Hogan had got it from John McMahon, and But I did look a little bit more closely into the origins. There are all sorts of variations on that song, under the Southern Cross I stand, a sprig of wattle in my hand, a native of my native land, etc., etc. But it seems like one of the authoritative sources is a song that was written in the 1890s by a gentleman called the Reverend Thomas Hillhouse Taylor, who was a clergyman, prominent clergyman of the Church of England, ordained by the Archbishop of Sydney in 1892, but a man of literary gifts and the author of a mystery drama called Parsifal, produced by J.C. Williamson in 1906. But apparently he wrote a song called Australia, or Heart to Heart and Hand to Hand, which contains the verse, "For heart to heart and hand to hand, beneath the Southern Cross we stand, and shout, God bless our native land, Australia, Australia," back in 1890. So that's one of the potential sources for the Australian victory song of today.
Well, that's a fascinating story, Gideon. I look forward to hearing it on the podcast because my hearing aid ran out of batteries midway through it. And I'm now on the Saley app.
I knew it'd get in somehow.
Yeah, I knew it too. Yeah, I might actually take this out. Seeing there's been a bit of an intermission, I might take it out onto the balcony. The sunset's nice.
Okay.
Go on. Where were we up to? What were we talking about? Apart from,
well, I think we should.
Cats that I didn't hear.
No, I think we should talk a little bit about the story that you've just filed on cricketetal.com about the slightly unsavoury pall that hangs over this Test match, which was discussed in the press conference yesterday. Can you talk us through what we know and why we know it?
Yeah, well, I'd suggest it's more than slightly unsavoury. It's a really unsettling story that there was a hint of it 2 years ago, and somehow I managed to, somehow I think we all managed to forget about it and move on. But one of the West Indian players had been accused of a pretty serious sexual assault 2 years ago. And there was some expectation after a police inquiry that the person would be arrested. That did not happen. Now, there are some social activist groups, victim defence groups, who have taken up this cause and are alleging that there are now 11 women making claims against this person. The women are backed by evidence of their families and things like that. We can't name the player because they are only allegations. They haven't even moved to charges, let alone convictions. And how do you proceed from there? How does sport proceed from there? You see it all the time. You see this wrestled with a lot of the time when there are allegations made or even charges made, and then the player is not necessarily convicted. What does the sport do? West Indies Cricket announced today that it would not be making any comment because it has received no information from anybody about these charges or about this incident. So they will not be making any comment or answering any questions. At least one person, Jeff Lemon, sort of objected to this and said, well, you could do your own investigations. I'm not so sure about that. I mean, is it up to a cricket board to investigate these things? Generally, you would have thought that they are better left to the authorities, although in this case it seems like there's been some government intervention in the situation and the authorities have investigated and have recommended this and that be done, but it hasn't happened because it's a pretty awkward situation. Now, I'm being really careful here, not only not to identify the player or where the player comes from, but there's another element to this. And I remember a long time ago, I got onto a yarn that an Australian cricketer had been picked up for using cocaine. Now, they hadn't been picked up by the police, but there'd been allegations from another player that this person was using cocaine and had sort of done something improper in the team setting. The player had fessed up to it. It had never reached police level. I knew who the player was. I knew it had happened. I got it confirmed by Cricket Australia that they had disciplined a player but never admitted to it publicly because of this. Now, I published the story, and this is why I say it brings up another issue. When that story hit the press, I got phone call after phone call after phone call from people saying, I know exactly who it is. It's X. Now, they all thought it was one player, and they were all wrong. You would be very. They were totally wrong. Now, it's an awkward situation. You can't go, no, it's not that person, because then you narrow the field even further. But here we are with a situation. We have one of 11 players has been is facing these allegations. It kind of, which one is it? You know, it make the other 10 are in some ways sullied by association or by speculation. But I don't think that's a major concern, but it is a side issue. But that's where we are with this. I mean, the story has been reported in the Caribbean, in the newspapers. There are documents floating around that detail the offences and detail the the victims' accounts of the story and their families who are involved and things like that. But that's essentially where we're at, and that's where it will stay, I guess, unless charges are laid. I don't know what you think about that. I don't know. I'm sure there are people who believe that player shouldn't be playing cricket, but I'm not so sure.
It sounded like things got a bit testy in the presser with Darren Sammy.
Yeah. Well, Dan Cherney and Tom Deason are two very good and very persistent journalists. They pushed Darren Sammy, the West Indian coach, on this the day before. Sammy kind of pushed back and said, I believe in a justice system where, and things need to progress in a certain way, and answered the questions reasonably well. But it wasn't heated or anything. But at the end of the press conference, when the cameras and microphones were off, as Tom Deason has reported in the Herald and I assume not the Herald, yes, the Sydney Morning Herald and the Age. At the end of the press conference, Sammy walked up and said, "You're a mean man. Why are you so mean, man? Why are you being so mean to this man?" But Tom is anything but mean. But Tom was pretty persistent in the questioning. Understandably, the local journalists are sort of isolated to their own countries anyway, and not necessarily across a story like this, and aren't chasing it with much vigour. But as I said, it has been reported in one country here, one of the Caribbean countries.
And frankly, these days, you can probably Google it and find out what's going on.
Yeah.
It's not all that difficult if you really want to burrow down. And I dare say it's all over social media. Not that I know anything about social media, but these days word spreads pretty breezily.
It does.
And if you really want to find something out, you can.
Here's a guy with a podcast and a YouTube channel and a Substack, but he doesn't like social media. There's Pete as he gets the Cricket Head old T-shirt in the shot available.
Email's all the social media I need, Pete.
Yeah. There was another test match on today, England. Did you take anything notice?
Oh, you was, yeah. That's fair enough. Yes, I did pay some attention to that. Yeah.
I haven't got the score in front of me now because I've had that hearing aid issue in the other room, but it
was, I think, 5 for 310 at the close.
Shubman Gill got the 100.
Sent India again. Yeah, I mean, Shubman's made another 100.
JS will 80 odd.
India's undergone a total. Yeah, India's undergone a total makeover. They've left out Bumrah. They've gone in with Akash Deep. They've left out Sudarshan. They've brought in Reddy, Nitish Kumar Reddy, batting at 6, which is probably where he should be batting. They haven't played the wrist spinner Kuldeep Yadav. They've gone in with Washington Sundar to give them a little bit of extra batting. So it's almost a total spill of positions. I'm a little bit surprised they after the long break that Bumrah's had that they've gone in without him. But I guess they've got the Test match at Lords following this one at Birmingham pretty quickly, and they clearly want Bumrah to play at Lords. It's unfolding as a fascinating series.
Gideon,
it really is.
Gideon, I think they've got a bit too clever for their own good here. I mean, hey, they might get away with it.
Maybe.
But if Jasprit Bumrah is your ace in the pack, or whatever that cliche is, you lose this test, you're 2-0 down. There's no good saving him. Saving him from there for the third test, fourth test, or fifth test. Really, you do not want to go 2-0 down. It doesn't sit right with me at all.
Is it a little bit like England leaving out Anderson and Broad in the Brisbane Test match a few years ago?
Yeah.
Well, we'll play them in the second test, by which stage they're one zip down and really struggling.
Here's a shot from the balcony. Can you see that?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm good.
All right.
Oh,
I'm dying of envy.
Yeah, well, I'm going to cook myself a meal in my room tonight. I'm just staying here in Monet Rouge. I'm not going to go. The serenity has got me by the balls.
Okay. And when you got it by the balls, your hearts and minds will follow. That's all we've got time for on Cricket Etar. Great to have you with us. We'll be back tomorrow morning with the day's play from the West Indies. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from me.
And it's good night from him.